The art room for this school year might look a little different if you've been here before. So our smartboard area has this awesome new rug for you. You will get to sit crisscross applesauce on this rug, and you'll have your own space. Mrs. Cleary has her famous chair that she will probably sit in once in a while. Underneath the smartboard, there is a small little library of some books that will change throughout the year. Sometimes they'll have to do with a project your grade might be learning about. Other times it might be a project that another grade is learning about. So it might be a review for you or something you could look forward to in years to come. This year, to start, we have just a fun selection of some great art books. In the front there is a large workstation. That area will be as needed, a station throughout the year that we might do some work at, or maybe a spot where we put things to dry. Up on the top, you'll see that the word wall has been replaced with a new kind of wall that will display your grade's project example, what you will be able to do when you're finished with that project, and some key words that you're going to need to know throughout that project. The pencil sharpeners, erasers, sharp pencils, and pencils that need sharpening are all set up for you on a station on top of the supplies. There is one other sharpener in the room that we'll get to, but these will be the three that you will use the most. Please be respectful and put your sharpened pencils in the right spot and the ones that need sharpening in another. And of course, if you have a little time at the end of art, you can definitely help sharpen pencils. The supply area. You will see that there's some empty spots at the top. We will fill those up throughout the year with different things. Free draw paper is at the top cubby. On a normal art day, you can have one free draw paper when we're finished with a project. All of the supplies are down below. So there is a spot labeled for markers, oil crayons, colored pencils, thin markers, crayons, rulers, scissors, and of course everyone's favorite, the hole punches in the bottom. So if you take something or you're returning something, please put it back in the right spot in this area. You can see that I also have drawing boards and messy mats stacked on the side of there. If you are working on the floor, you can definitely use one of those. If you have something permanent that you're using to draw, you have to use a messy mat or a drawing board. So that kind of covers the front part of the room. Our library area looks a little different this year. Same bookshelf. So if you look a little closely, you'll see that each shelf has colored pieces of paper at the top. So books match those colors. So if you are reading a book, using a book, borrowing a book, please make sure you're matching the color on the book, like the red ones, and they go into the red cubbies. That red is on the top. Older kids, you will be using the library when you have free time. iPads are up there. I also have charging cords. So this year it's your responsibility. If you see an iPad is getting low, in the teens, tens, single digits for percent of battery life, please plug it in. There's a couple of different phone chargers in this basket. You'll just have to find the one that matches the iPad you're using. So some of the chargers have skinny little charges. Some of them have wider, longer ones. Bean bags. You know how to use those respectfully. The new shelf. Amazing new items that we will be using throughout the year. But this is an area that you have to have permission to use, except the top left shelf. So up on the top left shelf, there are drawing books and cartooning packets. Those are things that you can use when you're finished with a big project. The rest of the items are going to be something we use throughout the year and on specific days. The Elements of Art posters have been up in the room before. They were on the same wall last year. So the first poster just lists them all for us. the rest of the posters describe, define, give us awesome examples. So you can probably figure that we will be talking a lot about these this year as we work on all of our projects throughout the year. As you know, we have 2 sinks in the art room, one on each side of the room. Depending on where you're sitting or how long a line might be at a sink, depends on which one you choose to use. But you know the rules when you wash hands. You want to use a pump of soap, 2 pumps of paper towel, and please make sure that your paper towel finds its way into the wastebasket. Oftentimes I'm picking it out of the sink when we have a wastebasket right next to the sink. And if I zoom on over to the other sink, the garbage on this side of the room will be right on the far side. When you are cleaning up, Mrs. Cleary oftentimes refers to that red bucket at the sink. So the red bucket is where you will find rags to wash your tables. The back of the area of the room is going to change this year. Right now we have an older drying rack. We will be getting a new one shortly. So when we get that new drying rack, we'll talk about it. As for now, you know how to use the drying rack. Slide papers in there nice and neatly. This cubby area is where Mrs. Cleary stores all of your projects. So you really don't need to be going in or out of these cubbies unless Mrs. Cleary talks about it. Right now we have a couple of Mrs. Cleary's tools on this rolling cart. The top is a big press I use to flatten artwork. This is something you should not touch. Under that is where I will be storing my cutting board. Super sharp, heavy objects that you don't need to be playing with because we don't want you to get hurt. Artsonia code. Older students, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th graders. This is that special code you need to log into Artsonia. That will probably stay up there for most of the year. The table in the back of the room is just going to be used as kind of maybe a place where students can work a little bit quieter if they're struggling to work at the table they're at. There is also something back here that you have probably talked about in your classrooms a little bit. It's the take a break area. So in the art room, if you are having a little trouble following directions or getting maybe a little bit frustrated at a situation, Mrs. Cleary and you will decide if you think maybe you need to take a little 1 or 2 minute break. So at this area, if this table area is free, you can sit at the table. If this table is full of stuff, you can sit in a quiet area in the back of the room on the floor. But that basket has some paper, pencils, some putty, a ball, just something for you to kind of calm yourself down, get your mind where you need to be so that you can finish working. The area in the back of the room is kind of Mrs. Cleary's spot. This is where I will be doing a lot of my video making for our lessons, and I have a lot of my important paperwork. So this area is pretty much off limits. The cart in the back of the room has some supplies on it that you will get to use throughout the year, but again, it's not for you to take whenever you feel like it. And of course, the sink area is super close to Mrs. Cleary's desk. Please just be careful that you don't bump into people or the desk or anything over there because it's not a lot of space. This long table over here, something new. I foresee this being a place where you will find supplies, where I have things laid out that you will need. It might also be a place where we do some work as stations. Throughout the year, you might even have a chance to do a little coloring on this huge banner. We'll talk about that at a later time. Supply closet. The only thing you will need to get out of this closet are art shirts. And do you see how they're hanging up so nice and neat over there? They're even separated between the longer aprons on the left and the shorter aprons on the right. You know how to put them away correctly. So I hope that I don't find any aprons on the floor anywhere after you're done working. Please be respectful and hang them up. Over on this side of the room, again, are things that you will not need to use unless Miss Cleary has given you permission. Those things that will be on the shelves will just be supplies that we need throughout the year. Mrs. Cleary will give you permission if you need to grab anything. But this room arrangement allows us some extra space for some different stations. So we've got a counter over here, counter on the other side, and then the counter with the big banner. So hopefully you enjoy our art room this year as much as I do. The dot on the floor. I'm thinking some of you probably know what that dot is for. That is where our line is going to start. Oftentimes we crowd that door and we push and we shove, and then we're not getting anywhere safe. So the front of our line as we leave the art room will be on that dot, and your line can be a straight snake all the way across the big carpet. As you're lining up and as you're in the art room, please be respectful of the door decorations. I don't want that ruined in the first couple days of school or even the first couple months. We want to keep that decoration as nice as possible, so please just don't touch the artwork.